Ms. Anderson, we need you to come with us. The police officer's voice was stern as he stood in my office doorway. My heart stopped when I saw my stepmom, Diana, standing behind him, her face a perfect mask of concern. Something was wrong. Very wrong. My name is Emma Anderson. I'm 32, and I've spent the last 5 years raising my daughter Sophie alone after my husband's death. My father remarried 2 years ago to Diana, a woman 15 years his junior who'd never accepted my place in his life, or Sophie's. What's going on? I asked, gathering my things with trembling hands. The officer's next words made my blood run cold. We found concerning evidence at your residence. Blood spatter, weapons, and signs of violence. Your stepmother here reported suspicious activity after dropping by to check on Sophie. Sophie, my 7-year-old daughter who was supposed to be at school. Where's my daughter? I demanded, my voice sharp with fear. She's safe, Diana interjected smoothly. I picked her up early when I noticed something was wrong. She's with your father now. The drive to my house was a blur. Police cars lined my normally quiet street, their lights painting everything in surreal flashes of red and blue. Crime scene tape wrapped around my front porch like some grotesque decoration. As you can see, the detective gestured as we entered. There's significant blood spatter in the kitchen. We found a knife with traces of blood and signs of struggle in multiple rooms. I stared at my home in horror. The kitchen I painted sunshine yellow last spring was now a nightmare of red streaks. Furniture was overturned, pictures knocked from walls. But something felt off. The chaos looked staged. This is impossible, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I left for work at 7:30 this morning. Everything was fine. Your stepmother came by around noon. The detective continued, says she's been concerned about your behavior lately. Mood swings, aggression. I turned to Diana, who stood in my doorway wringing her hands in false distress. Have you now? I'm just worried about you, Emma, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. After James died, you've never been quite stable. Sophie needs a safe environment. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about concern. This was about Sophie. Diana had been trying to get custody of my daughter for months, telling my father I was an unfit mother, that Sophie needed a proper family environment. But Diana had made one crucial mistake. She didn't know about the security system I'd installed 3 months ago after her first attempt to undermine my parenting, when she called CPS with false allegations of neglect. Detective, I said calmly, I have security cameras in my home. They're connected to a cloud server that records 24/7. Diana's perfectly composed face cracked for just a second. The detective's eyebrows rose. Why didn't you mention this before? You didn't ask, I replied, pulling out my phone. And I wanted to see exactly what I was being accused of first. My hands were steady as I logged into the security app. Diana took a step forward, her mask slipping further. Those cameras, when did you? After the CPS visit, I said, not looking up. You remember that, don't you, Diana? When you told them I was leaving Sophie alone for days. Funny how the investigation found no evidence of neglect. The detective moved closer as I pulled up today's footage. There it was, Diana entering my house at 11:43 a.m. with a large bag. The next hour showed her methodically staging a crime scene, spilling what looked like fake blood, overturning furniture, planting a knife from her bag. I think the detective said slowly, we need to have a different kind of conversation. Diana's face had lost all color. That's not. I was just checking on. Checking on what? I asked, my voice ice cold. Checking to see if you could frame me for violence, take my daughter, destroy my life. More officers entered the kitchen as the detective continued watching the footage. Diana started backing toward the door, but 2 officers blocked her path. Mrs. Peterson, the detective said, using Diana's surname, I suggest you remain right here while we sort this out. I stood in my ruined kitchen, watching as Diana's perfect plan crumbled around her. She thought she could steal my daughter, convince everyone I was unstable. Instead, she walked right into her own trap. I want to see my daughter, I said to the detective. Now. He nodded, already on his radio requesting another officer to bring Sophie from my father's house. Diana stood silent now, her schemes exposed, as officers documented the false crime scene she created. The nightmare wasn't over. I knew that. But as I waited for Sophie, watching Diana being read her rights, I felt a grim satisfaction. Sometimes the best defense isn't just preparing for the worst, it's being ready to prove it. The next few days were a whirlwind of police statements and legal proceedings. My father was devastated when he saw the security footage, his perfect new wife revealed as a manipulative fraud. But what hurt him most was realizing how long Diana's campaign against me had been going on. I should have seen it, he said, sitting in my newly cleaned kitchen 3 days after Diana's arrest. Sophie was upstairs, finally sleeping peacefully after nights of confusion and questions. All those little comments she made about your parenting, the way she kept pushing to have Sophie stay with us more often. I poured him another coffee, remembering all the times I tried to tell him something was wrong. You saw what she wanted you to see, Dad. That's what people like Diana do. The police investigation uncovered more than just the staged crime scene. Diana's phone contained months of detailed plans, consultations with shady lawyers about custody battles, research on how to make someone appear mentally unstable, even conversations with a private investigator she'd hired to follow me. But what really shocked everyone was what they found in her personal email. Diana had done this before. In her previous marriage, she'd manipulated her way into custody of her ex-husband's children, only to give them up to foster care once she had control. It was all about power for her, about winning at any cost. Mrs. Anderson. Detective Martinez said during our follow-up interview, "You should know that your stepmother's looking at serious charges. Breaking and entering, filing false police reports, attempted kidnapping through deception. The DA is particularly interested in her history of similar behavior." I nodded, thinking of Sophie. What happens now? She's being held without bail. Your father's filed for divorce, and there's a restraining order in place protecting both you and your daughter. It should have felt like victory, but all I felt was tired. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from knowing someone had plotted to tear your family apart. Sophie was struggling to understand it all. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that the woman who bought her ice cream and called her princess had tried to take her away from her mother? But why did Grandma Diana do it? She asked one night as I tucked her into bed. Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. I pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Diana. She's sick in a way that makes her hurt people. None of this was your fault. My father threw himself into making amends. He started coming over more often, really spending time with Sophie, not just dropping by with gifts like Diana had encouraged. He even started attending therapy to understand how he'd been so blind to Diana's manipulation. One evening, as we watched Sophie showing him her science project, he turned to me with tears in his eyes. I almost lost you both because I couldn't see what was right in front of me. But you didn't lose us, I said softly. We're still here. The preliminary hearing was set for next month, but Diana's lawyer was already pushing for a plea deal. The evidence was too overwhelming, the pattern too clear to fight. My own lawyer, Sarah, was adamant we push for the maximum penalties. She tried to destroy your life, she said during our preparation meeting. She would have taken your daughter, painted you as violent and unstable. We need to make sure she can't do this to anyone else. I agreed, but part of me just wanted it all to be over. To focus on healing my family, on helping Sophie feel safe again. The security cameras that had saved us stayed up, though now they were less about protection and more about peace of mind. Sometimes at night, I'd watch Sophie sleeping on the monitor, grateful for the instincts that had told me to install them. You know what the craziest part is? I said to my dad one evening, after Sophie had gone to bed. If Diana had just been kind, been a real grandmother to Sophie, she could have been part of our family. Instead, she tried to steal it. He nodded, looking older than his years. Power corrupts, he said quietly, and Diana. She was all about power from the start. I just couldn't see it through her act. As we sat there in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Diana had staged her grotesque scene, I realized something important. Sometimes the family you need to protect isn't just the one you're born with or the one you create. It's also the one that stands by you when others try to tear you down. The next steps wouldn't be easy. There would be court dates and testimonies, therapy sessions, and difficult conversations. But we would face it together, stronger for having survived Diana's attempts to break us apart. The cameras that had caught her crimes now showed something different. A family healing, one day at a time. 6 months later, I sat in the courtroom, watching as Diana stood for sentencing. She'd lost her polished appearance, gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. Instead, she wore an orange jumpsuit, her true colors finally matching her outside. Your Honor, the prosecutor addressed the court, the state has demonstrated a clear pattern of calculated manipulation and criminal intent. Mrs. Peterson didn't just attempt to frame her stepdaughter once. Evidence shows this was a carefully orchestrated campaign spanning months. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, reviewed the documents before her. Security footage, email trails, phone records, and testimonies from Diana's previous victims, all painting a picture of a woman who'd made a career of destroying families. Mrs. Peterson, the judge's voice cut through the tension. Before I deliver your sentence, do you have anything to say? Diana's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw real emotion there. Not manipulation, not fake concern, but raw anger at being caught. I was only trying to protect my granddaughter, she said, her voice trembling with practiced vulnerability. Emma's behavior was documented as exemplary by multiple character witnesses, the judge interrupted, including her daughter's teachers, neighbors, and your own ex-husband, who testified about your similar attempts in his family. I felt my father's hand squeeze mine as Diana's facade finally cracked. 7 years, the judge announced, with no possibility of parole for 5. Additionally, you will have no contact with Emma Anderson, Sophie Anderson, or any member of their family for life. As they led Diana away, she turned one last time, her mask completely gone, replaced by a snarl of hatred. But I didn't flinch. She had no power over us anymore. Outside the courthouse, Sophie waited with my best friend Kate. My daughter ran to me, her pigtails bouncing. Is it over, Mom? Is the bad grandmother gone? I lifted her up, though she was getting almost too big for this. Yes, sweetheart. She can't hurt us anymore. That evening, we had a different kind of family dinner. Dad, Sophie, Kate, and some neighbors who'd supported us through everything gathered in my backyard. The same house that had once been a crime scene was now filled with laughter and a smell of barbecue. To new beginnings, Dad raised his glass, looking more like himself than he had in months. The therapy had helped him deal with his guilt and betrayal, and our relationship was stronger than ever. Sophie had bounced back with the resilience of childhood, though she still sometimes asked questions about Diana. We'd found a wonderful child therapist who helped her process everything in age-appropriate ways. You know, Kate said, helping me with dishes later, you should write this down someday. Help other people spot the warning signs. I nodded, thinking of all the red flags I'd noticed but initially dismissed. The way Diana had tried to isolate Sophie from my friends, how she'd subtly undermined my parenting decisions, her constant offers to help that really meant taking control. The security cameras still monitored our house, but now they captured happier moments. Sophie practicing cartwheels in the living room, Dad teaching her to bake cookies, our new puppy Max chasing his tail in the kitchen. 1 year to the day after Diana's arrest, I received a letter from another of her previous victims, a father who'd lost custody of his kids years ago. He'd seen our case in the news and managed to reconnect with his children, now teenagers. They were working on rebuilding their relationship. You didn't just stop her, he wrote. You gave other families hope. Looking at Sophie doing homework at the kitchen table, safe and happy, I realized that's what this whole ordeal had taught us. The importance of protecting not just our physical safety, but the bonds that make a family strong. The cameras that had saved us were still there, but they become something different. A reminder that sometimes the best defense is simply being prepared to show the truth. Dad joined us for dinner most nights now, and Sophie had started calling our Tuesday family game nights the best tradition ever. We were healing, growing, and learning to trust again. Mom, Sophie asked one night as I tucked her in, are we going to be okay now? I smiled, smoothing her hair back. We already are, sweetheart, we already are. The security monitor on my bedside table showed an empty, peaceful house. No staged crime scenes, no manipulation, no fear, just a family that had faced darkness and emerged stronger. Diana's attempt to destroy us had failed. Instead, she taught us an invaluable lesson about family, truth, and the power of being prepared. Sometimes the families that survive the storm are the ones that become unbreakable. And as I turned out the lights that night, I knew that our story wasn't just about survival. It was about triumph. We hadn't just overcome Diana's schemes. We built something stronger in their wake. A family bound not by blood or marriage, but by love, trust, and the wisdom to protect what matters most. The call from the emergency vet came at 3 a.m. Ms. Anderson, you need to come immediately. All 3 of your cats are showing signs of sedative poisoning. I bolted upright, heart hammering. By the time I reached the clinic, my hands were trembling on the steering wheel. Just hours ago, Luna, Atlas, and Nova, my beloved Persians, my champions, had been perfectly fine. I placed them in their carriers, ready for the biggest competition of the year, the National Cat Show Championship. Then I found them, lethargic, barely responsive. Dr. Martinez met me in the exam room, grim-faced. They were given a significant dose of sleeping pills, she said, holding up the blood work results. If you hadn't brought them in when you did. She let the words hang in the air, unfinished. I swallowed hard, but my fury burned hotter than my fear. I already knew who was responsible. Diana. My mother-in-law had been the only other person near my cats that evening, insisting on helping with their pre-show grooming. My Sarah's cats deserve that trophy, she'd said earlier that week, her voice dripping with disdain. Your precious purebreds shouldn't overshadow her hard work. Sarah, my sister-in-law, had only recently stepped into the cat show circuit. I'd spent years building my reputation, training, breeding, winning. Sarah wanted instant success, and Diana couldn't stand that her daughter wasn't the one in the spotlight. The signs had been there. Diana's sharp remarks about my obsession with cat shows, her unwavering praise of Sarah's less experienced handling, the way she lingered near the cat's food bowls that evening. Dr. Martinez sighed. We've stabilized them, but they won't be in any condition to compete tomorrow. The sedatives need time to clear their system. I stared at my cats, Luna's pristine white coat now tangled and matted from emergency treatment, Atlas and Nova, my stunning silver pair, breathing in slow, uneven rhythms. This wasn't just a competition anymore. This was about justice. My phone buzzed. Diana, probably expecting me to withdraw. Instead, I took photos of my cat's condition and called the show committee. Then, I opened my security app. Because what Diana didn't know was that I had cameras in my cat room. Minutes later, I watched the footage with Jack, my husband, as he stood in the clinic, his face pale. The screen showed his mother, calmly crushing pills and mixing them into my cat's food. His throat tightened. She wouldn't, but the proof was undeniable. I'm reporting this to the authorities, I said coldly. Your mother could have killed them. For years, Jack had defended Diana's competitive spirit. But now, watching her commit outright animal cruelty, the illusion shattered. As dawn broke over the clinic, I knew the championship would go on without me. But Diana's desperate attempt to eliminate the competition would cost her far more than a trophy. She thought she was securing Sarah's victory. Instead, she'd secured her own downfall. And I would make damn sure she never had the chance to hurt another animal again. This was just the beginning. The morning of the National Cat Show buzzed with excitement, blow dryers whirring, voices chattering, the scent of grooming products thick in the air. But I wasn't here to compete. My champions lay recovering at the vet, while I walked into the exhibition hall with an evidence folder in hand. Amanda, where are your cats? Sarah appeared, her ragdolls perfectly prepped in their carriers. Mom said you might not make it. Her smile was carefully measured, but I saw the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Ask your mother why, I said coldly, not stopping as I made my way to the show committee's office. I barely registered Sarah's confused protest before the door shut behind me. Inside, the committee members were gathered, finalizing preparations for the day's events. Margaret Chin, the head judge, looked up. Amanda, we received your call about withdrawing, but I set the folder down. My cats are in the emergency vet recovering from sedative poisoning. I have security footage of who did it. Silence fell as I opened my tablet and pressed play. The video was damning, Diana, clear as day, crushing pills into my cat's food, a smirk on her face as she watched them eat. I've filed a police report, I continued, voice steady. But the committee needs to see this. This isn't just about my cats. If she's willing to do this. Margaret's expression darkened. Where is Diana now? Probably helping Sarah prepare. She expected me to step aside quietly. Right on cue, Diana's voice rang through the hallway. Amanda. There you are. Such a shame about your cats being under the weather. She stepped into the office, her confident stride faltering the moment she saw the footage playing behind me. Under the weather? I turned, ice in my voice. You poisoned them. You could have killed them. Diana's smile stiffened. Don't be so dramatic. I only wanted to level the playing field. Your cats always win. It's not fair to Sarah. Not fair. My control snapped. I've spent years training and breeding my cats. Sarah has been competing for 6 months. And you think attempted animal cruelty is the answer? Cruelty. Sarah's voice came from behind her mother, unsteady. She stepped into the room, staring at the footage still playing on the screen. Mom, what did you do? Diana shifted, as if searching for a plausible excuse, but the proof was undeniable. They're just cats, she muttered. I didn't use enough to really hurt them. Mrs. Miller, Margaret cut in sharply, effective immediately. You are banned from all sanctioned cat shows. This footage is being forwarded to the police and animal welfare authorities. Diana paled. You can't do this to me. I was only thinking of Sarah. Sarah's breath hitched. No, Mom, you were thinking of yourself. You always do. She turned to me, tears brimming in her eyes. Amanda, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Security arrived to escort Diana out as she sputtered protests, but it was over. I turned to see Jack watching from the hallway, his face unreadable. The police are waiting outside, he said quietly. I called them myself after seeing the footage. His voice wavered. How are our cats? Our cats, not your cats. For the first time since this nightmare began, the tightness in my chest loosened. They're stable, I whispered. Dr. Martinez says they can come home tonight. Sarah wiped her eyes. I can't compete today. Not after this. I never wanted to win like this. Margaret nodded. Given the circumstances, we're postponing the Persian class until next month's show. Amanda, we hope your cats will be ready by then. As the committee dispersed and the show carried on without me, I checked my phone. Updates from the vet. My cats were improving, becoming more alert. They would be okay. Jack sat beside me, rubbing his face. I should have seen this coming. Mom's always been competitive. But this? He exhaled shakily. I never thought she'd go this far. She didn't think she'd get caught, I murmured. She's probably done things like this before, just without security cameras catching her. Sarah returned, her ragdolls already packed up to leave. She hesitated. I want you to know I'm stepping away from showing. At least for now. I need to learn properly what Mom did. That's not who I want to be. I nodded, accepting the words. As I stepped outside, I spotted Diana being placed into a police car, her carefully crafted image in ruins. She met my gaze with pure venom, but it didn't matter. She had no power anymore. The next few hours blurred into police statements and paperwork. By evening, I was finally back at the vet clinic, preparing to take my cats home. They were weak but alive, their beautiful coats a mess, but their spirits intact. As I placed them gently into their carriers, I knew the road to the next show would be long. But we would recover. We would return stronger. Diana had tried to destroy everything I'd built. Instead, she had destroyed herself. And in doing so, she had freed her own children from her toxic shadow. Sometimes, losing a competition reveals the real champions not just in the show ring, but in life. The fallout from Diana's actions rippled through our lives in ways none of us could have predicted. 3 months after the incident, I sat in a cat room, watching Luna, Atlas, and Nova bat at their new toys. They had made a full recovery, though the road back hadn't been easy. Diana's trial had been swift. The evidence was irrefutable, and her courtroom outbursts only sealed her fate. They're just animals, she had shouted, exposing her true nature for all to see. The judge, a known animal advocate, showed no mercy. 2 years probation, heavy fines, and a lifetime ban from owning pets. But the real changes weren't in her sentencing. They were in our family. Jack had finally broken free from his mother's manipulation. One evening, as he stroked Luna's now lustrous coat, he murmured, I keep thinking about all the times she must have done things like this. All those accidents and coincidences that always worked in her favor. Sarah surprised us all. Instead of walking away from the cat show world in shame, she came to me a month after the incident. Would you teach me? She had asked hesitantly. Properly from the beginning. I want to earn my place here. Now, as I watched her gently groom her ragdoll under my supervision, I saw real potential. She had patience, care, and a willingness to learn, the very qualities Diana had tried to crush in her relentless push for instant success. The cat show community stood by us. Margaret Chen made sure everyone knew what had happened, not to humiliate Sarah, but to ensure Diana never wormed her way back into another show under false pretenses. The cat fancy is a family, Margaret had said, but we don't protect those who poison it. When my cats finally returned to competition, the moment was triumphant. At the rescheduled show, Luna took Best in Show, with Atlas and Nova earning high placements. The victory was made sweeter by the fact that we had earned it honestly, through resilience, not sabotage. Diana made one attempt at contact, a tearful letter filled with appeals to family loyalty and forgiveness. "I only wanted what was best for Sarah," she wrote. "You've destroyed our family over some cats." Jack sent back a single reply, a photo. Our cats, their ribbons gleaming, Sarah standing proudly beside me as my apprentice. No words were needed. Diana hadn't destroyed our family. She had simply forced us to rebuild it without her. The security cameras stayed up, but now they captured something different. Sarah's first successful show grooming, Jack learning how to help with the cat's care. The day we brought home our rescue Persian in need of rehabilitation, a project we tackled together. "You've built something beautiful here," Sarah told me recently, watching the cats bask in the sunlight. "Not just the wins, but the way you care for them. I never understood before why you were so dedicated." She was right. The cat show world had given me more than trophies. It had revealed the people I could trust, the ones I needed to keep at a distance, and the true meaning of resilience. Diana had tried to destroy what I loved, but all she had done was expose the rot she had long hidden. She lost everything: her standing in the community, her control over her family, and the ability to manipulate from the shadows. 1 year after that night, we hosted a small celebration. Luna, Atlas, and Nova had all qualified for the international championship. Sarah's first solo show cat had placed in its category. Jack had become a familiar face at shows, known for his gentle handling of nervous felines. Looking around at our new, stronger family, I realized Diana had given us an unexpected gift. In trying to tear us apart, she had helped us build something stronger, something she could never comprehend. The security footage of that night remained saved on my computer, a reminder that sometimes the worst actions bring out the best in others. Diana had tried to poison my champions, but she had only proven who the real champions were, not just in the show ring, but in life. As Luna batted at her favorite toy, her coat gleaming in the sunlight, I knew we had won something far greater than any trophy. We had won our freedom, our integrity, and our peace of mind. And that was a victory Diana could never take from us. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. You don't even need a service dog. You're just faking it for attention. Sarah's voice rang through the hallway as she yanked on Max's leash. My highly trained service dog turned back to me, his ears flicking with uncertainty. I gripped the doorframe, my breath shallow. "Sarah, let go. Max is medically necessary." She scoffed, her manicured nails curling around the leash like a lifeline. "Necessary for what? I've seen you out in public. You look perfectly fine to me." That was the thing about invisible disabilities. No one saw the daily battle, the effort it took to stay upright, the moments before the world tilted and darkness crept in. Max was my anchor, trained to sense when my blood pressure dropped, to steady me before I collapsed. "The security cameras are recording this," I warned my neighbor Mrs. Thompson peeking from her doorway. "Kicking a service dog is illegal." Sarah laughed, the same mocking laugh she perfected since marrying my brother. "Security cameras? Please. They'll show me rescuing a poor dog from someone using him as a prop. I'm taking him to a shelter where he can actually help someone." Panic gripped my chest, my vision blurred at the edges, an all too familiar warning sign. Without Max to ground me, I pressed harder against the frame. "Tom knows my condition. He's seen my medical records." "Tom's too nice to call you out," she snapped. "Someone needs to stop this ridiculous act. You can't just slap a vest on a dog and expect everyone to believe you." I wanted to scream that Max had years of training, that he'd saved my life more times than I could count. But my voice wavered. The darkness at the corners of my vision thickened. "Mrs. Thompson," I forced out, my voice barely above a whisper, Record this. Max whined as Sarah tugged him toward the elevator, his body tense between his training to stay calm and his instinct to return to me. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, I managed before my legs gave out. The world tilted, and I slid down the doorframe, helpless as Sarah disappeared with my lifeline. Mrs. Thompson rushed over, phone in hand. I got everything. Are you okay? Should I call an ambulance? I shook my head, though the room spun. My phone. I need to call Tom. The next hour was a blur. Mrs. Thompson helped me onto the couch, my legs elevated, something Max usually did for me before these episodes got worse. Tom didn't answer. I called the police instead, my fingers trembling. Your sister-in-law took your service dog. The dispatcher repeated, her voice sharp with concern. Do you know where she's taking him? No, but he's microchipped, and I have all his certification paperwork. He's a legally protected medical service dog. The police arrived 20 minutes later. I handed over every document, proof of Max's training, registration, certification. Officer Martinez reviewed Mrs. Thompson's video, her expression darkening. This is a clear ADA violation, she said. Taking a service dog is theft of medical equipment. That's a felony. I nodded weakly. The building has security cameras. Can you? Already on it. Officer Chen interrupted. The manager is pulling the footage now. My phone buzzed. Tom, I put him on speaker. Olivia, I got your messages. What the hell is Sarah talking about? Saving a dog from exploitation. She stole Max, Tom. She thinks I'm faking my condition. Silence. Then his voice, tight with fury. She did what? Officer Martinez leaned in. Sir, this is a criminal offense. We have video evidence. We're treating this as theft. Tom exhaled sharply. She's not answering my calls. But I can see her location. She's at Happy Tail Shelter. I'm heading there now. We'll meet you there, Officer Chen said. I forced myself upright, every movement an effort. I'm coming too. Mrs. Thompson grabbed her phone, her grip firm. You're not going alone. The ride was tense. My heart pounded, not just from my condition, but from fear. What if Sarah had convinced them I was unfit? What if Max was already gone? Officer Martinez glanced at me. The shelter's been notified. They're holding him. As we pulled in, I saw Tom's car parked haphazardly, Sarah's SUV beside it. Voices carried from inside. Heated, urgent. This wasn't over. But with the police at my side, the video evidence in hand, and the truth finally laid bare, Sarah had nowhere left to hide. The shelter's automatic doors slid open, and the argument inside sharpened. Sarah's voice, sharp and indignant, cut through the air. I'm trying to help this dog. She's using him for attention. She doesn't even have a real disability. Flanked by Officers Martinez and Chen, I stepped inside with Mrs. Thompson right behind me. The scene was chaotic. Tom stood in his rumpled hospital scrubs, his face flushed with anger. Sarah stood at the front desk, gesturing wildly, while a stern-faced shelter manager held Max's leash. My heart clenched. The moment Max saw me, his ears perked, though his training kept him from pulling away. Ma'am, the shelter manager was saying, her voice firm, we cannot and will not process this surrender. This is a clearly marked service dog with identification and a microchip. Finally, Tom exhaled when he saw us. Olivia, are you okay? You look pale. Before I could answer, Sarah spun around, her expression twisted with rage. Oh, perfect timing. Now you can all see how she's faking it. Look at her. Does she look disabled to you? Officer Martinez stepped forward, badge displayed. Mrs. Parker, step away from the service dog. This is ridiculous. Sarah scoffed. Are you really going to believe? Sarah, Tom cut in, his voice dangerously low. Security cameras caught everything. They recorded you taking Max. They recorded Olivia collapsing after you left. Jessica, the shelter manager, looked appalled. You saw her collapse and still brought the dog here. She's faking. Sarah snapped, but her voice wavered. She's been faking for years, using that dog to get special treatment, making Tom feel sorry for her. That's enough, Officer Chen said sharply. Mrs. Parker, stealing a service animal is a felony offense under state law. The color drained from Sarah's face. A felony? But I was trying to help. Help? My voice was unsteady. but I forced myself to stand my ground. You think taking my medical alert dog helps anyone? Max isn't a pet, Sarah. He detects changes in my blood pressure. He warns me before I faint. He keeps me safe. Jessica nodded. His training credentials are impeccable. The certifying organization is one of the most respected in the country. The videos show everything, Mrs. Thompson added, lifting her phone. How you waited until Tom was at work. How you dragged Max away while Olivia begged you to stop. How she collapsed in the hallway. Sarah paled. Videos. Multiple angles, Officer Martinez confirmed. Building security, Mrs. Thompson's recording, and the shelter's own cameras. Would you like to revise your statement about helping? I saw the exact moment reality crashed into Sarah. Her eyes darted between the officers, Tom's furious expression, and Max's service vest emblazoned with medical alert patches. I didn't. Didn't what? Tom snapped. Didn't think you'd get caught? Didn't think stealing a service dog was serious? Or didn't think Olivia's disability was real because you can't see it? Max, I called softly, and Jessica immediately led him to me. The second he reached me, he pressed against my leg, his signal that my blood pressure was dropping. I needed to sit. Mrs. Thompson quickly grabbed a chair. Sarah scoffed. See, she's fine 1 minute and sitting the next. That's not how disabilities work. That's exactly how POTS works, Tom shot back. Her blood pressure drops suddenly when she stands. Max alerts her before she faints. You'd know that if you ever listened when I explained it. Officer Martinez pulled out her handcuffs. Sarah Parker, you're under arrest for theft of medical equipment and interference with a service animal. You have the right to remain silent. As the cuffs clicked around her wrists, Sarah's bravado shattered. Tom, you can't let them do this. I was protecting you. She's been manipulating you with this fake disability act for years. Tom stared at her like she was a stranger. The only manipulation I see is yours. We'll be discussing this with a divorce lawyer. I'll be pressing charges, I added, gripping Max's fur for stability, and filing a restraining order. Sarah's face crumpled as Officer Chen led her outside. The shelter fell silent, the only sound the hum of the air conditioning and Max's steady breathing beside me. Jessica broke the quiet, handing me a copy of the incident report. Everything is documented. We're happy to testify if needed. Thank you, Tom murmured, rubbing his temples. I can't believe, Olivia, I had no idea she would. It's not your fault, I said, though my hands still shook. But this can't happen again. Max isn't just a dog. He's my independence. Mrs. Thompson, still clutching her phone, gave me a reassuring nod. Don't worry, dear. Between the security footage and what I recorded, she won't be able to claim she was helping anyone. As we left the shelter, Max staying close where he belonged, relief ward with exhaustion. I had him back, but at what cost? My relationship with my brother would never be the same. But when I looked at Tom, all I saw was regret, and a promise to make things right. Let's get you home, he said gently. I'll follow to make sure you get there safely. The adrenaline was fading, my body growing heavy with fatigue. But Max was with me. He would alert me when I needed to rest. He would keep me steady. Sarah had tried to paint me as a fraud, but all she had done was prove exactly why I needed Max in my life. The weeks following Sarah's arrest were filled with unexpected changes. The district attorney's office reached out about pressing charges, sending over a thick stack of paperwork that laid out the gravity of her actions. Taking a service animal is legally classified as interference with medical equipment, my lawyer explained, and the security footage of you collapsing after she took Max significantly strengthens the case. Sitting in her office, Max steady by my side, I skimmed the documents. Sarah was facing multiple felony charges, service animal theft, medical interference, and willful endangerment of a disabled person. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Building security footage, Mrs. Thompson's videos, the shelter's documentation, and Sarah's unrecorded admissions. Tom called me every day, his voice thick with guilt. The divorce papers are filed, he told me one evening. Sarah's parents tried defending her, saying she was just being protective. Then I showed them the video of you collapsing. They stopped making excuses. The criminal case moved quickly. Overwhelmed by the evidence, Sarah's lawyer negotiated a plea deal. No jail time but steep fines, mandatory community service at a disability advocacy center, and a permanent restraining order keeping her away from me and Max. On sentencing day, I sat in a courtroom with Max at my feet and Tom beside me. Sarah looked nothing like the woman who had once dragged my service dog away, her designer wardrobe replaced with a modest suit, her usual confidence hollowed out. "Would you like to make a statement?" the judge asked me. I rose carefully, one hand on Max for balance. "Invisible disabilities are still disabilities," I said, my voice steady. "Max isn't just a dog. He's my medical alert system, my independence, my safety net." When Sarah took him, she didn't just take a pet. She took my ability to function safely in the world. As part of her plea deal, Sarah was required to issue a public apology. She stood stiffly, hands trembling as she read from a prepared statement. I let my assumptions about disability cloud my judgment. I was wrong to take Max, wrong to accuse Olivia of faking, and wrong to put her health at risk. The words felt rehearsed, but the judge seemed satisfied. He handed down her sentence: 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, a $25,000 fine payable to a service dog training organization, and a lifetime restraining order. Outside the courthouse, Tom pulled me into a tight hug. "I should have shut her down the first time she questioned your disability," he said. "I should have done more." "You're doing the right thing now," I assured him. "That's what matters." But the story didn't end in that courtroom. Mrs. Thompson shared the security footage with our apartment complex, prompting management to implement mandatory service animal awareness training. They invited me to speak at a resident meeting, and I stood at the podium, Max beside me, addressing neighbors who had once viewed me with skepticism. "Not all disabilities are visible," I said. "Max alerts me before my blood pressure drops, helping me avoid dangerous falls. He's not just a dog in a vest, he's medical equipment that allows me to live independently." The impact rippled outward. Local news picked up the story. Support poured in from the disability community, with people sharing their own stories of doubt and discrimination. What Sarah had intended as an expose had instead revealed the harsh realities of living with an invisible disability. A year later, I stood before a state legislative committee, testifying in support of stronger penalties for service animal interference. When someone takes a service dog, they're not just taking an animal, I said. They're taking someone's independence, their safety, their ability to navigate the world. The bill passed unanimously. The media dubbed it Max's Law. It imposed stricter penalties for interfering with service animals and required disability awareness training for offenders. Tom, now divorced and focusing on his medical career, often joined me at advocacy events. "You turned something awful into something meaningful," he told me after one speech. "You didn't just fight Sarah, you fought for everyone with an invisible disability." As for Max, he remained my constant companion, unfazed by the drama that had swirled around us. His focus never wavered. He kept monitoring my health, alerting me when I needed to rest, helping me stay steady. Sarah had set out to prove I was a fraud. Instead, she had proven exactly why I needed Max. "He's perfect for children's parties," my mother-in-law declared, her signature know-it-all smile firmly in place as she led my retired police horse, Thunder, toward her extravagant backyard event. Sunlight caught on her gaudy jewelry as she tugged at his reins like he was some obedient carnival pony. I stood frozen at the edge of her manicured lawn. "Patricia, stop." "Oh, Amanda, don't be so dramatic," she scoffed. "He's just a pony." Just a pony. Right, because a highly trained former riot control horse, built for crowd dispersal, was totally the same as a petting zoo pony. I clenched my fists as I took in the chaotic scene. Patricia had transformed her backyard into a carnival-themed nightmare. Balloon arches, a bounce house, and dozens of sugar-hiked children tearing through the grass while their parents sipped champagne. And in the middle of it all, she was about to turn Thunder into her latest party attraction. "Thunder isn't trained for this," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "He's a retired police horse with specialized commands. This isn't safe." Patricia waved a dismissive hand, diamonds flashing. "Oh, please. I grew up around horses, remember? My father owned a stable." She turned back to Thunder, muttering, "Honestly, Amanda, he's been lazing around your pasture for months. It's time he earned his keep." Earn his keep. As if 12 years of service, of facing down riots, patrolling tense crowds, and keeping officers safe, meant nothing. "Mom, maybe listen to Amanda," Mark said from behind me, his tone cautious. Patricia shot him a look sharp enough to cut glass. Don't be ridiculous, dear. Your wife is overreacting. Then, in a sing-song voice that made my teeth ache, she called to the kids, "Who wants to be the first to ride the pony?" I stepped forward. Patricia, stop. Thunder responds to specific commands. If you say the wrong word. Oh, enough, she snapped. I've already promised pony rides and I am not letting you ruin this party. My blood boiled, but before I could react, she clapped her hands and barked out, "Forward, march." My stomach dropped. That wasn't a casual command. That was a riot control cue. Thunder, ever the professional, did exactly what he'd been trained to do. He squared his stance, lifted his head, and launched into a powerful high-stepping march meant to clear crowds. The kids squealed in delight, thinking it was part of the show, but Patricia staggered backward, her designer heels sinking into the grass. "Stop! Whoa, halt!" she shrieked, throwing out every horse-related word she could think of. But Thunder didn't answer to generic cues. He had his training, and panic screeching wasn't part of it. I should have stepped in immediately, but I took a moment to savor the scene. Thunder expertly dismantling Patricia's perfect party as he plowed through balloon displays and sent expensive floral arrangements flying. "Amanda!" Patricia shrieked, her carefully coiffed hair beginning to unravel. And then, in a stroke of truly spectacular bad judgment, she shouted, "Charge!" I barely had time to groan before Thunder reacted. That command wasn't for show. He knew it as an order for serious crowd control. His muscles tense, and he surged forward, heading straight for Patricia's prized rose garden. The moment was almost cinematic. $1,000 worth of pristine, award-winning roses, no match for a police-trained horse in full tactical mode. "No, no, no," Patricia wailed as Thunder did his job with military precision, clearing the area with methodical efficiency. I finally stepped in, giving the correct stand-down command. Instantly, Thunder stopped, ears flicking toward me, standing tall amidst the carnage. Not a single hair out of place. I took his reins and looked at Patricia, whose face had gone through at least 3 shades of horror. "That," I said calmly, "is why you don't give random commands to a police horse." Around us, parents were gathering their children. The party was officially over. Patricia stood speechless, eyes darting between the ruined decorations, the trampled roses, and her shattered authority. Mark cleared his throat, valiantly suppressing a smile. "So, should we head home?" "Good idea," I said, leading Thunder toward the trailer. Behind us, Patricia was already spinning the story to her remaining guests. Well, how was I supposed to know he'd react that way? Amanda should have warned me. I smirked. Oh, she'd been warned. She just hadn't listened. As I loaded Thunder into the trailer, I patted his neck. "Good boy," I murmured. Sometimes karma just has 4 legs and a perfect sense of timing. The aftermath of Thunder's performance at Patricia's party was exactly what you'd expect. Explosive. By the time we got home, my phone was buzzing nonstop with messages from family members. Patricia had already launched her campaign of victimhood, painting herself as the poor, well-meaning grandmother who had been attacked by my dangerous animal. Unbelievable. I turned my phone to show Mark where his cousin had sent a screenshot of Patricia's latest social media post. There she was, posed dramatically beside her ruined roses, writing about how she'd survived a terrifying encounter with an unstable police horse. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You know how Mom gets when things don't go her way. Remember what happened when we didn't use her wedding planner?" Oh, I remembered. Patricia had spent months warning everyone that our wedding would be a disaster. When it turned out perfect, she called it beginner's luck. Later, as I was checking Thunder over in the paddock, Patricia's car screeched into our driveway. She climbed out like a hurricane wrapped in designer fabric, waving her phone. "Do you have any idea what this has cost me?" she shrieked, wobbling across the grass in heels entirely unsuited for the terrain. "The garden club is saying I endangered children. My reputation is ruined." I kept brushing Thunder, who remained utterly indifferent to her dramatics. "I warned you, Patricia." Repeatedly, giving him commands was a bad idea. "Well, you should have warned me better," she snapped. Then, with a sharp glare, she added, "And now I hear you're some kind of police horse expert. Since when?" I turned to face her, brush still in hand. "Since I spent 7 years as a mounted officer," I said flatly. You'd know that if you ever asked about my career instead of dismissing it as my horse phase. That stopped her. Patricia had always trivialized my job, telling anyone who listened that I was playing around with horses until I settled down to give Mark children. That's beside the point, she sputtered. That horse is dangerous and needs to be dealt with. I've already called animal control. A chill ran down my spine. You did what? They'll be here tomorrow, she said, a triumphant smirk forming. Let's see what the experts say about keeping a police horse in a residential area. I stepped closer, my voice low and controlled. Thunder has all his certifications and retirement paperwork. He's legally registered with a spotless record, but you know what isn't legal? Giving unauthorized commands to a trained law enforcement animal. Patricia scoffed. He's retired. That doesn't count. He still holds an active training certification. I countered. Which means what you did today could be considered interference with a law enforcement animal. Would you like me to call my former surgeon and discuss the legal implications? Patricia's face paled. She hadn't expected me to push back. I usually tried to keep the peace for Mark's sake. But this wasn't about family politics. This was about Thunder. You're bluffing, she said, but the waver in her voice gave her away. I pulled out my phone. Sergeant Martinez would love to hear about this. She always had a soft spot for Thunder after he helped take down that drug ring in 2019. Remember that, buddy? I patted Thunder's neck, and he nickered softly. The story had made local headlines. Thunder and I had cornered a group of fleeing drug dealers in a crowded park, preventing injuries and securing the arrests. His training had been instrumental in keeping civilians safe. I didn't know, Patricia muttered. No, you didn't. Because you never asked, I said evenly. You were too busy trying to set me up with your friend's son who owns a real estate company. She fidgeted with her phone. You know what else you didn't know? I continued. Thunder has saved my life 3 times. Once during a riot when someone tried to pull me from the saddle. Once during a pursuit when he sensed an ambush before I did. And once when he stood guard over me after I was injured, keeping protesters away until backup arrived. For once, Patricia was silent. So go ahead. Call animal control, I said calmly. I have 12 years of service records and commendations to show them. What do you have? A ruined garden party and a history of ignoring explicit warnings. The only sound was Thunder's steady breathing and the rhythmic strokes of my brush against his coat. Finally, Patricia exhaled, her voice quieter than I ever heard it. I'll call them back. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. That would be wise, I said, not even looking up. She turned to leave but hesitated at the paddock gate. Why did you ever tell us? About the Dreb bust? About saving your life? I met her eyes. Because you never seemed interested in knowing who I really was. You were too busy trying to turn me into who you thought I should be. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Without another word, she climbed back into her car and drove away, kicking up dust in the evening light. A moment later, Mark emerged from the house, having wisely stayed out of the confrontation. Everything okay? I leaned against Thunder's solid warmth. Your mother just learned that her daughter-in-law has a spine, and that her grandkids are going to have a pretty cool story about their mom and a police horse. Mark smiled, stepping into the paddock. I'd say she learned a lot more than that. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the paddock, I realized he was right. Today had changed things, for better or worse. Patricia had finally seen a glimpse of the real me, not just Mark's wife, not just a future mother to her hypothetical grandchildren, but a woman with her own history, her own strength, and a partner who had always had my back. Thunder nudged my shoulder, his way of demanding a treat after a job well done. I pulled out an apple and held it out to him, smiling as he happily munched away. Patricia might never fully change, but at least now she knew who she was dealing with. And that was enough for me. 3 weeks after the garden party disaster, I came home from Thunder's vet appointment to find Patricia's car in our driveway. She stood by the paddock fence, surprisingly dressed in jeans and flats, practically casual by her standards. I've been doing some research, she said as I led Thunder from the trailer. No greeting, no small talk, classic Patricia. About mounted police units. I said nothing, giving Thunder his head so he could graze while she continued. I had no idea, she admitted, her gaze fixed on him. The training, the bond between officer and horse, the risks you both took. She hesitated, then pulled a thick folder from her bag. Did you know Thunder's drug bust was featured in a police training manual? I did, I said simply. That case was used to train new recruits for years. She nodded, then handed me the folder. I found these in the newspaper archives, articles about you and Thunder. Her hands trembled slightly, including the one about the riot, the one where he saved your life. I flipped through the clippings, years of my career laid out in black and white. There we were, Thunder and me, directing parade traffic, patrolling downtown, accepting a commendation from the mayor. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Patricia exhaled, the words slow and deliberate. Because I was wrong. About you, about Thunder, about everything. Her voice was quieter than I ever heard it. I spent so much time trying to fit you into my idea of who Mark's wife should be that I never saw who you actually are. Thunder wandered closer, nosing toward her pocket, searching for treats. Patricia startled but didn't step back. I called your former surgeon, she admitted. She told me what you and Thunder accomplished. Said you were one of the most decorated teams in the unit's history. My eyebrows lifted. You called Sergeant Martinez? Patricia actually flushed. I needed to understand. And she had strong opinions about respecting retired police animals. I smirked, imagining that conversation. Martinez never held back. I also resigned from the Garden Club board. Patricia continued. They wanted me to file a formal complaint about Thunder. I told them to find someone else. Thunder nudged her pocket again. She glanced at me. Is it okay if I nodded. She held out an apple, fingers stiff at first, but Thunder took it gently, crunching contentedly. Patricia laughed, a real, unguarded sound. I'm going to restore the rose garden, she said, but I was thinking. Maybe we could add a plaque about Thunder's service. The Garden Club ladies might learn something about judging appearances. The offer stunned me into silence. Of all the things I expected from Patricia, this wasn't one of them. I like that, I finally said. And she hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. Maybe you could tell me more. About your time on the force. About Thunder. If you want to. I studied her. For the first time, I saw not the controlling, overbearing woman I clashed with for years, but someone genuinely trying to understand. Why don't you come inside? I said. I have old photos, stories, and Thunder's getting new shoes next week. You could come watch, see how police horses are trained. Patricia's eyes lit up. I'd like that. Very much. As we headed toward the house, Mark pulled into the driveway, pausing mid-step when he saw us together. Everything okay here? He asked, clearly bracing for drama. Your mother's learning about police horses, I said, starting with the time Thunder and I chased down a purse snatcher through the park. That was in the papers too, Patricia added, holding up her folder. Mark glanced between us, a slow smile forming. Well, he said this should be interesting. And it was. Patricia never stopped being Patricia. She still hosted extravagant parties and meddled in our lives. But something shifted. She started seeing me as more than Mark's wife, and Thunder as more than just a horse. The plaque in her restored rose garden became a neighborhood conversation piece. It read, Dedicated to Thunder, retired police horse and hero. And beneath it, in smaller letters, never judge a book by its cover or a horse by its pasture. Not every victory is about winning. Sometimes it's about changing how someone sees the world. Thunder taught me that in our years of service, and now he taught Patricia too. As for those pony rides she'd planned, these days she preferred telling everyone about her daughter-in-law, the decorated mounted officer and Thunder, the hero horse who'd rather trample roses than suffer fools. Some lessons, I suppose, are worth a few crushed flowers.